We have one other speaker for you all tonight, and that is Jed Alegado. He is the Senior Communications Officer for Asia Pacific of hashtag Break Free from Plastic. I love that hashtag. Since joining the movement in 2017, he's been instrumental in leading Asia Pacific's communications work and organizing capacity building workshops on communications and campaigning for members in the region. I am so grateful to you, Jed, for being here with us all the way from the Philippines, and we are so excited to learn more from you. So take it away.
Okay. So good morning from Manila, Philippines, and so still August 18, right, in your region. If I may be given the co-host, so I can share my screen. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I hope it's working. Yeah. So while waiting for the screen sharing. So good morning again. Thank you for the nice introduction, and to organizers for inviting me here. So Lian really, showed us the really link of plastics, no, to climate. So what I'm going to show is in terms of the Asian perspective on how we're also dealing with the complex relationship between plastics and climate. Yeah. Okay, so first, a brief introduction. Second, stopping plastics where it starts tour that I've participated 2 years ago. I will briefly share my experience, and then of course the link of plastics and climate from an Asian perspective, and the need to really build solidarity and bridge the fight between and among our groups. Yeah. So stopping plastic where it begins, or where it starts. So back in May 2018. That's 2 years ago. Well, a lot of things have happened along the way. So I, together with two other women activists from Asia, one from India and one from the Philippines, represented the Break Free from Plastic movement. So the other one she's Lakshmi Narayan. She's from India. She's a trade union waste speaker activist. And then the other one is Myrna Dominguez. She's a food sovereignty activist from the Philippines, representing fisher folk communities who are actually impacted by plastic pollution, and then representing the disposal chain of plastic pollution. So we visited groups. We talked to different groups fighting petrochem build out in Texas, Louisiana, Pittsburgh, West Virginia, and ended the tour at the Earthworks office in Washington, D.C. So these are Lakshmi and Myrna from India and the Philippines, respectively. This was in Pittsburgh 2 years ago, where we had one of those public events. So we all know how really plastics, single-use plastics specifically, are connected to the issue of climate change, the issue of the petrochem build out and the oil and gas industry, especially in the different states that are also impacted by these build outs. And We know that 99% of plastics are derived from fossil fuel feedstocks, and that according to the Center of International Environmental Law, or Shell, in the report, fueling plastics, how frack gas, cheap oil, and unburnable coal are driving the plastics booms. The US fracking boom has made natural gas really, really cheap. And it is driving a massive expansion in new infrastructure for plastics and petrochemicals. And we see these every time we go to Costco, to other large supermarket chains, the deluge of single-use plastics in different sizes and different forms. And as the industry projection, by 2025, production capacity is projected to grow by 1/3 for both ethylene and propylene, lacking in a massive expansion of cheap plastic production for decades. Probably I'm not sure whether the COVID-19 situation, the pandemic, has slowed down this projection. But definitely, the greenhouse gases are emitted at each stage of the plastic life cycle. Yeah. Plastic pollution is a significant and growing threat to the Earth's climate. There's really a link, the big connection between our battles here in the developing countries to your battles there also in a big developed country like the US. And stopping expansion of petrochemical and plastic production, and really making sure that fossil fuels in the ground is a critical element in addressing the climate crisis. The plastic life cycle, from fossil fuel extraction and transport to production and manufacturing to the disposal of plastic waste, whether it's landfill, is incinerated or recycled, there's really greenhouse gas emissions in every step of the way, the ongoing environmental impact. And probably in your previous A to Z Plastics webinar, you have seen the health impacts as well of plastics, with microplastics, with the food packaging impacts as well. And its impact to human health and to other health of other species. Plastics is primarily landfilled, recycled, or incinerated, each of which produces varying amounts of greenhouse gas emissions. So, for example, if you incinerate it or you burn it, you have these GHG emissions with energy recovery. Yeah. So at current levels, greenhouse gas emissions from the plastic life cycle threaten the ability of the global community to keep global temperature rise below 1.5 degrees. Yeah. So it's really killing our oceans. And of course, we know, the threat of microplastics. Diane Wilson has been really waging a battle, and together with other groups as well, on microplastics and the impact to our environment. Yeah. So what are the high priority actions that we can take now in terms of plastic production? So definitely we need to end the production and use of single-use plastic, disposable plastic. That's why here, break free from plastic. Stop development of new oil, gas, and petrochemical infrastructure. That's all of you are doing in your respective communities. We need to transition to zero waste communities. And a lot of groups in the US and other regions as well, in Europe, in Asia, in Latin America, and South America, who are members of Break Free from Plastic, they are really, really helping communities to transition to zero waste. Implement extended producer responsibility as a critical component of circular economy. And these EPR or extended producer responsibility is something that we really need to here in in Asia, no, in Southeast Asia. Well, at least some of countries here already have legislations, but we really need to other countries to step up as well. And we need to really target ambitiously to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So stopping the expansion of petrochem and plastic production and keeping fossil fuels in the ground, it really provides the surest and most effective path to reducing the rising climate impacts of plastics. And, you know, we have seen groups what you have been doing in your communities, in your respective states to really stop the petrochemical build out and really making sure, it really helps our fight in making sure that plastic production is being stopped. But it doesn't end there. There's another way. There are also other ways on how countries or countries in the global north, the companies headquartered in the US, in Europe, have been inundating us with waste as well. So where in the world is where plastic recycling going? So it goes to countries like Malaysia. So from Berkeley, California, we go to Malaysia. And according to the Ecology Center of in Berkeley, recyclers should have an oath first to do no harm. We should have a policy that we're here to prevent pollution, not be the source of pollution. With China's closing of doors of waste imports in 2018, I guess, January 2018, other countries are at the other Southeast Asian countries are at the receiving end of the waste dumping, of waste importing. So Philippines, Malaysia, Indonesia, we have been experiencing a lot of waste dumping in our ports. So this picture, I think, is taken in Malaysia, where there are actually ports that have received waste imports. These are single-use plastics, which actually there's no way of recycling these items, but were imported to these countries in a guise of recycling. Yeah. So you have this is Prigi Arisandi, one of our activists in Indonesia, in Surabaya, who have been really waging a battle against single-use plastics consumption and also waste dumping in his backyard. Yeah, in Surabaya, Indonesia. So especially last year, we have received a lot of reports in Malaysia, Indonesia, Vietnam, Thailand, Philippines, that we've received a lot of these single-use plastic waste, which can neither be recycled nor composted, which are in our ports. And actually, these waste are coming from Canada, from the US, from Australia, from Hong Kong, from Japan, from South Korea. Yeah. So just to give you an overview of this issue of waste dumping, illegal waste dumping in our region. Yeah. And that's why we're also active in global policy spaces. In the Basel Convention, we advocated for a prior informed consent and the right to refuse in terms of the waste imports being sent to us by the more developed countries. So what's the future of recycling? I saw someone in the chat box who actually mentioned, is there a way, what can we do about chemical recycling? So what's the future of recycling? definitely recycling is not enough because only 9% of plastic ever made has been recycled. This is not to this is not to put recycling on a bad on a bad spot. You know, I mean, recycling is good, but it's not that efficient. That's why these waste dumping has been happening from one rich nation to a poor nation. Yeah, and of course, with plastic production being projected to quadruple by 2050, we can definitely, unless we really stop plastic production, companies start to shift to more sustainable packaging and not, green washing or false solutions, then this will be the business as usual approach. We can see a lot of, we can see definitely experience a lot of waste dumping in our countries as well because of the luge of single-use plastics in the markets. So, which future do we want? Is the business as usual approach or the less plastic but more recycling? Yeah. And that's why we need to turn crisis into opportunity. And I guess in the US now you have this Breakthrough from Plastic Pollution Act, which we also hope can somehow address the plastic pollution problem from the start to the end of the chain, from the production up to the waste disposal. Yeah. So definitely there's a way forward out of the plastic production and the deluge of waste dumping, single-use plastic waste dumping in our communities. We need to reduce virgin plastic production, meaning companies should really shouldn't renege on their commitment to that by, for example, 2025 they would reduce virgin plastic production, etc. They should really follow follow those commitments. We should definitely combat pollution from existing plastic production that have been continuously being done, and we should have a higher social and environmental standards for any continued recycling. Yeah. And the last part of my my presentation for today. So this is a sample of a picture, an image of a slum community in urban poor community in the Philippines. You can see here houses, slum communities, and really children literally breathing with plastic waste. And for the past years, decades actually, we've been seeing the narrative that the people are to blame. That these single-use plastics, it's an issue of the lack of discipline of people, the lack of really good waste infrastructure in the global south, the lack of waste management. So we've been seeing this narrative came out in the mainstream media, but thanks to and in 2015, in fact, a study came out that says China, Indonesia, Philippines, Vietnam, Sri Lanka, these are the top, countries producing plastic debris, plastic leakage entering the world oceans. And you can see here, a lot of these countries are actually from the global south, and at least the top 5 or 6 countries are from Asia. Yeah. For example, in the Philippines, there's actually a landmark law, the Ecological Solid Waste Management Act of the Philippines, or Republic Act 9003, which together with other two laws there, the banning incineration and really mandating household waste segregation at the household level, and really making sure that villages and community are are really segregating their waste and are really making their waste management more efficient without resorting to waste incineration and really uh, preventing it to go to the landfills instead. So what is mandated under this decentralized system? This is actually like a zero waste system. So you need to segregate, sell recyclable and compost the organics at the household level. At the village level, you need to collect, segregate waste or sell recyclables, compost organics using your materials recovery facility. And at the city level, the special waste or those that can either be recycled or composted, these are the ones who should be who should go to the city or the municipal level. Okay, so this is a typical waste stream, right? You have the organics, which can be composted, the recyclable, which can be recycled. But you can see here the residuals, the plastic bags, the packaging. These are the waste that can neither be recycled nor composted. And in a typical Asian community, Southeast Asian community, you have the organics, you have the recyclable. We can do something about this waste, but the residuals are they are really the problematic ones because we cannot do something about them, and these actually account to a significant fraction in our waste stream. You know, in one success model zero waste community in the Philippines, the compliance rate for waste segregation, source segregation is at 95%. And the current diversion rate, meaning the percentage of waste that goes to the landfill, is at 80%. No? So, and the image there is actually an image of a materials recovery facility of this community. So you can see here through massive information education campaign and door-to-door segregation at the village level, zero waste communities in the Philippines and in other Southeast Asian countries are successful and are becoming model zero waste communities. And actually, it also helps, with the whole discussion on climate and the GHG emissions, because you reduce the energy used to transport waste from 120 times per month to just 30. Yeah, it's really possible. Zero waste, it's really possible, and there are a lot of groups in the U.S. like Gaia who are really helping communities to transform them into becoming zero waste. And in Asia, a lot of member groups of Break Free are also working with local government units. So this is an ideal image of a materials recovery facility. You have the recyclables segregated there. You have these organics that are being composted and being returned back to the environment, through composting, through these urban food gardens, and there in the MRF. Yeah. But despite having zero waste processes and community models in different parts of countries in Southeast Asia, there's still these residuals, and the 14% which can either be recycled or composted. And these are single-use plastics which have been inundating us because of these fast-moving consumer goods. products that are being sold in small packets or sachets, cooking oils, soy sauce, etc., vinegars, shampoo, conditioners that are packed in small sachets, packets that are sold because they are so-called quote-unquote pro-poor because they're economical. That's why we need to build power. And in 2017, the Breakthrough from Plastic movement, Earthworks is part of that, and along other environmental justice groups in the US who are members of Breakthrough from Plastic, they met. I wasn't still part of the team there, but we met in 2000. They met in 2017 in the Philippines, created a common strategic framework and vision, supporting regional, national, and cross-border organizing. And right now, we're at least, this should be updated, 2,000 plus members globally. Yeah. So these are some of the members in Asia Pacific. Yeah, we're one of our communications and campaigning workshop held in Manila. Okay, so this is our strategy. Because we really see the need to turn the tide on plastic pollution. We want to end plastic pollution for good. Yeah, and plastic pollution must be tackled from the source up to the end. That's why we're bringing groups also from you guys, no? These groups fighting petrochem and the oil and gas industry. Yeah, so the plastic pollution, the different intervention points that we're seeing. Yeah, and one of which we also do for the 4th year this year, we're doing brand audit. Although now it will be in a different condition because of COVID-19 pandemic, we are auditing the different waste in our communities and in the oceans, and coming up annually with our top 10 plastic polluters. So on the left side, you can see the industry narrative that these are the countries to be blamed for plastic pollution. They lack the discipline, they lack the waste management system, they lack the robust infrastructure for waste management. But in fact, when you try to think about it, the real narrative is on the right side. These are the top 10 plastic polluters. Nestle, Unilever, Coca-Cola. Well, this is actually during the first year, no? And these top 10 plastic polluters, on the right side, this is just based on a Freedom Island cleanup in the Philippines. But the following year, we've done it globally. And this year, we will also be doing it, the brand audit, to really call on and keep the pressure on the top 10 plastic polluters. And for the past 2 years, Coca-Cola has been in the number one. No? Rank number one. So, but we also need to go back to the tradition. We need to go back to the old school before single-use plastics have started to inundate us and the markets. We need to, of course, every single choice has a consequence. We need to refuse. But at the end, even if we refuse all the single-use plastics that we can, we also need to scale the battle. We need to really fight, systemically. We need to. The change must be systemic rather than the individual contributions. And so, from an Asian perspective, how do I link plastics and climate? This is a beautiful quote from Jennifer Creel, the Earthworks Executive Director, whom I met 2 years ago in Pittsburgh and in Washington, D.C. Yeah. So the global north headquartered companies are inundating us, meaning us here in the other side of the world, with single-use plastic packaging called sachets or packets, which can neither be recycled nor composted. There's also the waste dumping from the global north to the global south, and also some developed countries in our region like Japan, Australia, South Korea, Hong Kong, and plastic production through petrochem, oil and gas industries, which of course, if you're going to look at the big picture, the whole the plastics chain, you have to look at it from the production up to the disposal. So to break free from plastic is to really stop plastic where it begins, where it starts. So this was taken in Pittsburgh 2 years ago, in one of those plants in Pittsburgh. Yeah. So we need to build solidarity, bridge the fight. And I end with a quote from 2 years ago when I wrote a blog. We need convergence among movements from different races and from different kinds of struggles is necessary as we fight against big corporations carrying the neoliberal principles. Uniting these groups from the upstream to the downstream of the plastic pollution will bring about a broad yet solid front against capitalism and its successes. So, thank you.